Good morning. This is Jason Dean coming live again, coming from my favorite place, my home away from home, which is home, Film Fanatic headquarters. It is Tuesday at about 10:43, so I hope everyone's doing good. I appreciate there's been a lot of people who have been continuing to comment on these videos, and I love that. It's great. The interaction, the feedback is super cool. I've gotten some new subscribers, so yeah, keep it coming and keep the the showing of appreciation and love and interaction. It's great, and that's why bringing movies to the table that I feel it's kind of the mission. If anything, there's a the only mission that I'm on, if you want to call it that, as far as why I do this crazy thing called Film Fanatic, and I've been doing it for a while now, is to bring movies that I feel are never really talked about, or movies that are not talked about enough, trying to shine some light on them. That's really it. And so, and especially, when it comes to my deep, deep love and obsession with all things exploitation, anything that, that entails. And exploitation, when you say exploitation movies, I mean, that's the thing that I'm always reminded of the further I get into my favorite genre, is just how incredibly diverse the that label is, if you want to call it that. You have all of these different genres, and I truly feel like that. There is there's something for everyone, because it's really broad. I mean, I gravitate towards the horror exploitation movies the most, obviously, and especially around slasher films, my favorite genre. But within the exploitation world, I mean, you have all of the giallo movies that I've been covering, and that I've bought a lot of giallo films the last couple of years, which is one of my all time favorites as well. Then you have these like crime action exploitation movies, all kinds of shit, and it's just so there's like you know um, there really is there's so many different things in that genre. You have the horror exploitation, but then you go even further. Then you have like kind of the nun exploitation realm, which is amazing. Of course, the black exploitation. I mean, just so many great subgenres. And today I'm going to be talking about a movie that I don't believe that I might have I might have done a show. I've actually had this movie for a few years, and I watched it again last night, only for the second time, and I was just like, "What? Why isn't this movie? This movie was so kick ass. Why isn't this in my regular rotation?" And I think I might have done a video on this a while back, but maybe even when I started the YouTube channel, it might have been one of the first videos. But regardless, uh, and I and I could be wrong, but regardless, this movie was so awesome that I want to really talk about it today. Rewatched it last night. Bought this really beautiful edition, and that is the Massage Parlor Murders. This movie is total sleaze. It's total trash, and I loved every minute of this movie. It came out in 1975, and yeah, it's a total like sleaze fest. It's a it's kind of a slasher movie. I kind of feel like it's a crime. It's definitely a crime based film. Super low budget, super gritty, super dirty, uber violent. Some great kills in this movie, but it's kind of like a slasher movie, and go I'd almost go to the extent of saying it's kind of like a giallo film. The movie that I did a review on the other day, which is one of the greatest giallo films, I put up a video of that show or of that movie yesterday, and that movie was "What Have They Done with Your Daughters," which is easily my favorite Giallo movie. But watching the Massage Parlor Murders last night, following that amazing Giallo film, I was like, wow, this is. It was kind of funky. It was almost very similar in style. This, of course, was or is an American exploitation movie. Came out in '75, and it's a crime drama, and it's essentially a hunt for this kind of crazed psychosexual maniac that is visiting all of these like sex parlors, and he's killing off all of these women, and he's an incredibly disturbed individual. It was directed by, well, actually, there's two directors on this film, which is kind of interesting: Chester Fox and Alex Stevens. This came. It's funny too. It says the release date was '75, but then it also says it came out in '73. I think it was shot in '73, but it didn't get a release until '75. But this DVD, Blu-ray, or I should say Blu-ray, is simply amazing. The transfer of this sleazy movie onto Blu-ray is just so killer. There isn't any. The only thing that does kind of suck about this movie or this package is that there's no special features. The transfer again is incredible. There's a Blu-ray, the Blu-ray version, but then there's also a DVD version of this film. But the transfer of this trashy little movie is just so fantastic. There's also two different cuts to this movie, and there's a there's a theatrical cut, and then there's also like a re-release version of it, like an uncut version. And I've watched both versions. The first time I think I watched this, again, I bought this probably like 4 years ago, 3 or 4 years ago, and I bought this totally cold. I had never seen this movie before. Didn't I don't even know if I had even heard of it. It might have come up in one of the shows that I had watched on YouTube with some of the YouTube guys like Mood. I watch a lot of amazing clips by Moods 616, who is a Canadian YouTube guy who is takes a deep dive into all of these amazing films. I've learned so much about this kind of cinema through his channel, especially around Giallo films. And then also 42nd Street Forever, which is another amazing show, a British guy who I'm going to try to get on the channel as a guest. This guy is like, as far as like YouTube guys that I watch, and there's obviously a handful, and there's a few that I really watch a lot. But as far as when it comes to like the world of all things or anything related to the world of exploitation movies, this dude is like, he's got like a fucking PhD. This guy is so knowledgeable. He's got the most incredible collection I've ever seen when it comes to movies. But he's filled with so much knowledge about this, you know, bygone era of filmmaking. So I'm trying to, we talked about it a while ago, and I'm gonna follow up on it, but I really want to have him as a guest on Film Fanatic. He lives in the UK, so it's going to be a little tricky as far as scheduling, but I'm going to I'm focused on trying to set up an interview and getting him on this channel because he's just awesome. And anyway, I think I might have heard about this movie on one of those channels. It might have come up in one of one of the shows. They do a lot of shows, both of those guys, on. They usually do these big hauls of movies that they buy, and I believe that this had come up in that, and maybe that's how I had heard about it. But I got this at Bull Moose about 4 years ago. For the most part, I had no idea what this was, didn't even know what I was getting myself into. I remember thinking, wow, okay, it's from the 70s. It looks like a super sleaze fest. it looked like, oh, this might be a slasher movie. So that's all I need to know. Didn't know anything really else about it, and bought it. And this movie is just totally badass. I love this movie. And I've watched both versions. I've watched the theatrical cut, and last night I watched the unreleased version, the uncut version. And I will say that I don't think there's a difference. I didn't notice a difference between the two. I'm not sure why there's two different cuts. The this movie is like, again, it's super sleazy. It's pretty nasty. It's I don't know. It's just like everything that I love about the '70s is in this movie. You have, well, lots of violence and sex. It's super gritty. It's super raw. Super low budget. It's a super low budget film, and it's a great story. The cops that are involved in investigating these crimes are just really great, and it's got this kind of dirty, you know, uh, delivery to telling the story. It's, the fashion of the '70s is well represented. The the music, the funk, the '70s funk music is represented pretty well in here. I mean, just everything, and it's kind of a psychedelic movie too. There's times where this movie gets pretty trippy because there are sequences where they are inside the parlor with these women who are essentially these prostitutes, and there are certain sequences where they show them with their clients, and it gets pretty bizarro. Really great editing for this movie, especially the ending for this movie. There's a lot of like heavy cuts and a lot of cool sequences where they use this really theatrical kind of lighting, and it's super trippy. It's got a very psychedelic vibe to it at times, but really cool, really stylized. I love, like, I see it more and more in movies now, which I'm really grateful to see, because for all intents and purposes, movies like this don't get made anymore, and it's but the influence of these movies, I feel like, is coming back. I see it more and more in a lot of films. Um, Movies like, well, even Long Legs. It has that '70s vibe. It has that kind of gritty, dirty vibe taken from these classic movies, and also um, movies that I think have that. Maxine is a massive. That movie is essentially a giallo movie. So yeah, and I love that there's such a deep love for these movies, but the influence of these films will always, I think, be around. And I see it more and more. And even in The Substance, which is arguably the best movie I saw 2024 with Demi Moore, which I, that movie is just completely fucked and amazing. I saw that in the theater, and the other night when I saw that it was nominated for Best Picture, I almost fell out of my chair. But I think that movie was, I think it's totally safe to say that that movie was definitely inspired, or these low down and dirty exploitation movies had a big influence on that movie as well. More so in the early part of the career of David Cronenberg. That really insane kind of body horror aesthetic. But definitely, that's all related to this amazing genre. But yeah, Massage Parlor Murders. This movie is super badass. I can't recommend it enough. It's super entertaining. It's a really great crime drama slash slasher, and I think it's kind of like a giallo film, even though this is, an American film. And again, from my experience with watching these movies, I don't know what it is. Like, I always feel a certain kind of rush after I watch these movies, and it always puts me in a good mood no matter what. Even if I'm like, kind of in a dumpy, you know, somewhat depressed mood, or had some things happen during the day that were kind of stupid or shitty. I throw in one of these movies, everything feels pretty damn good because it's just cathartic, and it's just, you know, I think one of the things about these exploitation movies that's so great is I think that they get, and I've said this many times before, but for me these movies just get to the heart and source of why we watch movies. Pure unadulterated escapism from the mundane, from the everyday experience. And I think when it comes to horror films, I think it's really cathartic. And again, these movies are not like, you know, I mean, obviously in the exploitation world, there are movies that are, you know, obviously in tone and maybe what the filmmakers might be trying to say are, you know, more serious than others. But I feel even with films that are, you know, really brutal and are very intense in the exploitation world, as opposed to like, you know, say a Herschel Gordon Lewis movie where it's, you know, super campy and just uber ridiculous. I still think, you know, those movies provide provide a release. You know, I remember seeing an interview with John Carpenter years ago, and he was talking about, you know, why this interviewer was asking, you know, John Carpenter, like, what is it about horror films? Why do people love horror films? And when it comes to that genre, which is, you know, the best genre around, he was saying how it's really, you know, it's, well, on one hand it's pure entertainment, but it's also cathartic. You know, you kind of like, I don't know, you kind of face your own anxieties, you kind of face your fear, and you deal with it in a healthy kind of fantastical way where, you know, nobody's nobody's actually getting hurt, nobody's getting assaulted, nobody is, you know, going to get in a situation, you're not going to get in a fit of like road rage. It's totally cathartic, and I think it helps you, you know, to a degree kind of face your own fears, your own demons in a lot of ways, but yet still be totally entertained. And, you know, and again, these movies, I feel like in this world that we live in, which is just a total, you know, the reality of the world that we kind of live in, you know, outside of what we can kind of control, is, you know, it's a fucking shit show. So it's to me, it's like it reflects just the kind of the lunacy of this world, or this, you know, reality of what we live in, or at least what we perceive in, but we can deal with it in a really cathartic, kind of safe way. So, plus they're just fucking fun. So, thanks again. Definitely check this movie out. Massage Parlor Murders. Super awesome. If you're in the mood for something really sleazy and low down and dirty, this is the movie for you. Yeah, so thanks again, and we will see you next time. Peace.